States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could please have a moment of silence for men and women in uniform. Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Adjustments to the agenda. Any, John?
Yeah, that's brought up in the hearing, I want to talk about the response from our attorney on a lot of these ordinances that were...
Okay, please. Yep.
What we noticed, both Tom and Tricia were disappointed in the response because we've since given you copies, but back in April 13th, Tom had sent along several recommendations for consideration. And in September, on the marijuana ordinance, Tricia had sent asking for a timeline when that can be incorporated into zoning chapter 38. And she responded that tentatively plan on a planning board workshop in the third week of October and public hearings in mid-November. Well, that went way beyond because we just received these for the last meeting. So, not so much on the two that we just heard because those are kind of small but I'm more concerned, and Tom's more concerned with all the other major ones that we ended up emailing you. Floodplain management, site plan review, shoreline zoning. What he wanted to see if we could get the lawyers to look in and codify everything into chapter 38 with mostly land use, one ordinance concerning all the land use issues. And if you noticed some of the comments, to me there were just a few comments, so it wasn't really, they didn't do what we had asked them to do. We had asked them to, these are our recommendations, make sure they're, the legalese are written and get it back to us so we can proceed on to a town meeting, so. Tricia ended up talking to Jim Casafikis, who you might remember, who did a lot of the work on the M&H thing with the planning board and the Board of Appeals, and he would be willing to review this, but we have a town attorney, so I think he'd be more adept in these kind of land use issues because he's been doing municipal attorney stuff for a long time. So I think we should consider having him review all these land use ordinances for us. We might get them back at a more reasonable time frame, and I think he's a little cheaper actually, by a few dollars. So that's what I wanted to bring up, that we really didn't get what we were hoping to get all summer long, especially Tom's with us since last April. Mm-hmm. And when we did finally get it, it almost seemed like just they rushed through it and made a few recommendations, a few points,
I'm not gonna cut it.
I know. I mean, we've got a long way to go to try to get everything codified into one chapter.
I don't have a problem sending it to him. I know him.
Yeah, I think we were really cool. I mean, Kristen had a lot of experience at MMA in, planning, while she was there for 10 or 11 years. I think we were optimistic that this would be a good, benefit to the town of Rangeley, but obviously it hasn't. Jim Katsafikis has got a great reputation.
And he also is a former MMA employee, from way back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all right with you. I think we should use him for this specific task so that we can maybe a lot sooner get this completed so we can present it to the public for a vote.
Comments, Dave? Donnie?
No, I'm not going to do it.
Yep. So with the follow through, so who is responsible actually for follow through? I mean, I think I'd like to see us send Kristen an email saying that We've sent you 2 things. We've decided to move on to somebody else.
Can do that.
I mean, does it matter to them on who they get the request from?
Who?
The attorney's office. Does it have to come from you? I mean, just,
Well, if you'd like me to send them a letter, I'll definitely send a letter. In fact, my understanding is, wasn't it them that recommended Casaficas to us during that?
they did,
time?
okay.
I think Langsdorff recommended him.
Well, just to let them basically know that they dropped the ball, so we just need to move
Yeah,
faster. We
we'll
can't
certainly notify them.
work within their
before we-
timeline.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I have a couple questions for you on it. Along the lines of Shelley, it's important to me, it would be important to me if it was my law firm that somebody called me up and said, we're not happy. And here's the reasons why, and somebody needs to speak with this individual, and if Langsdorff is a senior attorney, he needs to know. And we are going to Casaficas, and this is why. They need to be able to fix their house. And if they don't know why, they can't fix it.
Well, don't tell us you're gonna have it in November, and then here we are.
I bet you're gonna bail.
Not exactly reliable.
That's my thoughts on it, so.
Me too.
Relative to, but I'm all set with going to speak. You know, I've also liked the responses that we've gotten back from MMA on everything that we've asked them to at this point. Granted, there's been some discussions as to whether or not it's valid opinion up here, but I do like their thoroughness. I think everything that they've touched so far has given us good, points of view. I'll get there.
Yeah.
Given us good points of view, and so that may be something we want to think about. But relative to this part, we got to get this thing going. So I would suggest guest speakers. Somebody had a comment?
Excuse me, I just had a quick question. What is our contractual obligation with our town attorney, and what is that costing us?
It's an hourly rate, I believe, correct?
$2.35 an hour.
So we're under no,
And I've never seen a contract. Apparently, they've been the attorney for 17, 18
Yeah.
years. So.
yeah,
Yeah, but I think we have quite a long history of seeking other legal opinions in other specific matters too. So,
Because sometimes there's a conflict of interest with Langsdorff and those guys.
And that's probably what happened on the M&H thing with the Board of Appeals. That's probably why they recommended we go with Casaficas.
yeah, could be. Okay. Any other points?
sorry, one more. Just a suggestion, maybe it's time to put out an RFP for a new attorney.
Because lawyers don't do it, I don't think. We should have a win-loss ratio. How many cases have they won, and how many cases did they lost in Rangeley? So we ought to just look it up for the fun of it.
Okay.
And what it's cost. But no lawyers really put that out there.
The thing is, most of what they do is not going to
Win
court
loss.
kind of stuff.
No, but I mean, a lot of,
Yeah.
but lawyers don't do it, you know, they don't have a thing, we won 300 cases, lost 500, you can't look it up anywhere.
Well, unless you get Joe Bornstein, you
Right,
win them all.
yeah.
And then how much is left after you pay him?
Yeah, win-win-one.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from December 17th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes dated for December 17th, 2018, with a correction on page 2, under number 8, old business. Scope of work in Lake Road, if we get grant funding, not grant funding. I think that's it.
Page 2, number what?
8, old business,
I'll second
Oh.
that.
Yeah, but I like grand is good.
for the grant.
I have another
Change the
comment
date
on the
to-
minutes. Once that's squared away.
Go ahead.
I think, so later on in our packets, there's an inquiry sent to the, to legal services at Maine Municipal based on a comment that Joe had made at the last meeting. I just think there should be some link, something that ties that question that was sent to MMA into these minutes where the discussion happened, that's all.
You want to table it till you see it?
I It doesn't matter.
We have 3 other ways of checking the veracity of the minutes. They could look at the tape, or they can get the full dialogue from her. This is a synopsis, as she states each time in the...
Yeah, where we sought, there was discussion, there was a legal opinion sought, and we're discussing it at this meeting. I think there just needs to be a tie written into the last meeting as
Okay.
to why, that's
Okay.
all. So
Yep.
just make whatever corrections you want, and we can move on. We don't need to revisit
Good.
the minutes next
All right,
week.
thank you. You guys, everybody good with that, ladies and gentlemen? Moved in, who seconded?
I did.
Cindy seconded, thank you. All those in favor? No opposed. Public to speak on the non-agenda items. For a whole half a year, I've been as lenient as I possibly can be with this, and I think it's worked out pretty well, but I would like to emphasize that all comments go through the chair. The board follows that procedure pretty nicely, and I think I'd like to see that again. I got just a few of you, but we'll get that in the minutes, that we're trying to tighten her up just a tad bit. Anything from the public on non-agenda items? Okay, thank you.
I'm not
Did you
sure
have
I
your
just
hand up when I looked?
What did you just say about this public to speak on non-agenda items, about going through the chair?
Comments come through the chair?
But,
Raise your hands, come through the chair?
yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, I thought that's the way it worked. Okay, good, thank you. I was just looking for clarification.
Bogey. I'm glad you're back, buddy. Good to see you. Boards and committees, planning board, we have, all of the stuff on boards and committees is available to everybody, but we did receive information from the planning board. Attendants were Rebecca Carmichael, Brian Roy, Wes Dugan. A few people were absent. Tom Lillis was there, and Tracy Pitt. Review of the minutes is very well documented. If you'd like to peruse that, it's available for you. Economic Development Committee, on December 3rd was held. Again, that's available for everybody to look through. Anybody on the board want to comment on any of these as I'm going through? Chime in, please. Okay. And the last one is the Rangeley Ordinance Committee. Rangeley Ordinance Committee has been working pretty hard on a lot of stuff. I mean, as do all the committees, but these folks have been moving right along. They have a lot on their plate. Thank you for your work, Tricia and staff and Donnie and everybody. Again, these are available for you at the front. Consent items, disbursement warrants, AP warrant, FY, etc. Need some motions.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve AP warrant fiscal year 19, number 20, for $571,601.31.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? So moved.
Chairman, I make a motion, we approve AP warrant fiscal year 19, number 21, for $712.66.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the board? All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve AP warrant fiscal year 19, number 23, for an amount of $77,512.93.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments? Good. All in favor? Skipping right along here. All right. Event permit for Boss Power Sports with the Raybeck Show.
I make a motion to approve the event permit application for Boss Power Equipment for the Raybeck Show scheduled for January 26, 2019, from 2 to 4 p.m.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? I have one. If you could turn to that, or I have a question. If you could turn to that last page where it shows Cross Street, Main Street, and all the X's. Since I couldn't find it in any of the documentation in here and what that's referring to, I'm assuming that's the no parking areas?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Very good. This is what spawned my question. See where it says Loon Lake? If you look at the map, the right-hand side of the road going up the street is marked no parking, but it's not on the other side. it still tucks it down into a one-lane highway at that point, going up to the
With all those
school.
trucks and trailers.
I'm sorry?
With all those trucks and trailers, it does.
Yeah, that's my point. Doesn't it make some sense to make that no parking as well?
The previous fire chief had done this, just so you're aware.
All right, I don't want to make any changes to anything, they do a fabulous job, I just want to point out that that's a choke point, and yeah, okay. All in favor? So moved. Cindy, Don. Downtown Reserve, Wright Pierce.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to pull $3,898.02 from the downtown reserve to pay the Wright Pierce invoice dated December 17th, 2018.
Second.
Shelley seconded. Any comments, questions? All in favor? You spend money around here like crazy. I have nothing under correspondence unless somebody else has got something. John, do you have anything? Okay. Old business, downtown revitalization plan. If you could refer to page 10, or to number 10 there, and the last piece of paper talks about CDBG grant, I'll read it to you. This is from Terry Ann Holden. Good morning, I've received the acceptance of the Rangeley Maine Downtown Revitalization Action Plan document. Should you decide to submit an application for a CDBG Downtown Revitalization, that acronym means Community Development Block Grant, grant funds, I will refer back to this plan for details and link your proposed activities. Thank you. John, if you just want to fill in on, I think it's $300,000 in the fund, correct?
Yeah, every year they send a proposed statement for the CDBG program. So this year there's $11,600,000 that they'll be distributing, and it's broken down into several categories. So downtown revitalization grant, home repair, housing assistance, public service, public infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. So they've allocated $300,000 towards downtown revitalization grants, which isn't a lot, but you could put in a project up to that amount of money. However, the deadline for a letter of intent is January 25th, and applications would be due by invitation only on March 29th. The purpose of the letter of intent is to know that you're ready. And being ready means you have to prove that you or your project, the whole town, or the project area, it has 51% low and moderate income residents, which requires a survey and it's quite a process. I've been through it a couple of times. So in my mind, you know, this is premature. There's no specific project, but it's something to keep in mind for next year. So if the committee can come up with a project for sidewalk improvements, street lighting improvements, or whatever is in the downtown plan, keep in mind that we would then have to figure out if we would qualify on a low to moderate income basis, and then be ready to send a letter of intent next January. So keep that in mind, and we could go up to $300,000, so it's something to work on. And what we ended up doing in Rumford, they've got a $5 million project rebuilding Congress Street and the whole island down there. And to do the low to moderate income, there's 2 senior citizen housing, the Muskie Building and the Hotel Harris. And 95% of them are elderly, retired, low income, low to moderate income. So since they were the only residents in that specific area, that whole area was allowed to a $990,000 grant that was announced just 6 months ago to help with that $5 million project. So if there are areas down there that you have apartments with elderly people or low income people, then that would be helpful to know, because they would have to sign a statement not to reveal their income, but to certify that their income is less than a specific amount depending upon how many are in the family, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever.
Wow, it's
So-
that involved.
It's very involved.
Wow.
It's not just like sending an application anymore for CDBG, so it's quite amazing. So even like public infrastructure, which is what Rumford got last year, 3.4 million, and if you look at the rules, they start off by saying they're not accepting any new applications because they're gonna give that money to 4 towns who applied last year and they didn't have enough money to give them all.
Okay.
So that's how this program works. It's very difficult to get funding unless you're somewhere in Washington County, you know, and I wrote a couple of these in Eastport, and they were always eligible for, because they were a very poverty area. So
Right.
it's an avenue to maybe help, but it depends on low to moderate income. Or the reduction of slum and blight. So I haven't seen any slum and blight around Rangeley, to tell you the truth.
Swain's gas station.
But you gotta prove that first, then we'd be eligible to apply for it. And it's a 25% local match, so
Okay.
it's a significant amount of money. Go 75%.
Let's go, we bring this up, so do you have anything you want to add to?
Yeah, if I could.
Absolutely.
First of all, it may be in your paperwork, but the Maine DECD did approve our downtown revitalization plan, which was the first step after presenting it to our public. And then the hope is, I think Pierce is trying to get on your agenda for the February 4th meeting for the board to approve the downtown revitalization and accept it.
Yeah, that Steve read the letter from
Okay, that's what I figured.
TECD saying, you know, we're all set. And that's good for 5 years.
But it still has to be ratified and accepted by the board of
And-
selectmen.
Yeah.
And that we hope to do on
So
February
we'll
4th.
hopefully hear from them and be on the next agenda for you to.
Yeah, as soon as we get it, I don't think there'll be an issue here.
And then just another little update, which is kind of corresponds to that, and I would have spoken in the board and committee, but you didn't give me an opportunity. But kind of as in relation to what John was speaking, where we needed to get the data on the income of the people as well, we want to do a whole housing survey, find out what housing is out there, how do we need to improve it. When we started thinking about all that, we're like, wouldn't it be good to have an intern, someone in a civic department, a civic major, who would be interested in coming and doing that. So we reached out to UMF Farmington, who has a pretty substantial internship program. And we had a brainstorming session today with ourselves and some of the nonprofits and the chamber to kind of come up with ideas overall in all of Rangeley, not just thinking small, but where could we use some interns, and so we've started that process, and we will be meeting with the head of that program the end of the month.
Great.
So if you guys have any input onto areas where you and the town could use an intern, please come to one of us.
Could you make the board aware of the date and time, so in case any of them would like to
It's
attend?
January 31st at 10 a.m. here.
It's here?
The head of the program's coming and is kind of he's willing to brainstorm with us as to what would make a good thing, and even to the point of we may be able to come up with a course that would have someone develop a course around how do you help with the local community better their economic development. So look on the timing. 10
10?
o'clock here.
Thank you. Anything else? Mark?
How many years is that income data valid? You know, in case you hit something like John said where the money wasn't available, but you did your income survey, how long is that
I don't know
information
that
operated?
Yeah, it's
You know.
good for at least a couple, 3 years. Because in Mexico, when I did one, first we did a town-wide one and discovered it was 58% low and moderate.
Yeah,
And then I put in for a specific project next year, and they said, no, you have to do site-specific income survey. I'm like, well, you kidding me, the whole town is 58%.
Yeah.
So I had to go just the streets we wanted to rebuild with sewer and water lines.
Yeah.
And, there was like a month to go to the deadline. So they let me, the two streets in question, they let me use the people who responded on the random survey we had done a year before, so I didn't have to knock on those doors, but I had to knock on enough doors to get 51% again for those two rows. So, and then the following year is when we got finally the award, so there was 3 years involved in that one, and there was 2 years involved in the Rumford one.
Yeah.
So there's really no definitive answer as to how long the data's
I think
valid.
At least a couple of years.
Right, because you wouldn't wanna do it in a year.
And then not use it
Funds
for
weren't gonna
5.
be available for 2 years, and then when you submit it, they throw it back and say, this stuff's expired, you gotta redo it.
But
Well,
That's
yeah,
my
and
point.
and I think to your point, if it's because they didn't fund that project that year, or there were too many and you were moved up to the next year, that would fully count. That's
The
what happened to
application's
Rumford.
still good.
That's
Yeah,
what happened to
okay.
Rumford.
But,
And plus, updating a baseline is easier than starting from scratch, so.
Joe?
So I'm trying to figure out how long is it gonna take before you might get any money from these grants. I'm just,
Well, it's harder and harder all the
right,
time.
I'm just, are we gonna be talking about this 6 years from now? Instead of town just raising some money and fixing it? I don't know, I don't know how much money you're talking, but I mean,
Back in the 80s, there was like $20 million in it.
Oh, yeah,
Now it's
yeah.
whittled down to 11. I
yeah,
mean,
5 million,
And
but,
given the state of the federal budget, it could be eliminated,
right.
which
I can
would
see
be
this.
devastating for the
Nothing
town.
ever
A lot of towns use community development block grants, they have been for decades.
Just to let the town can move forward and start buying some of these places and. Forced to like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Agreed, brings up a good point.
They should put something in the town warrant, so much money for purchasing property or fixing up Main Street or something, because maybe 10 years you're gonna be talking about this. Just like I said with the bathrooms.
Yeah, all of that.
And then,
Would be nice, unfortunately, that when they offer a grant and you gotta come up with 25%,
Yeah.
you have to follow that path.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
else you're not treating the taxpayers wisely, that's the problem.
Okay, anything else? Yes.
I know when I went to Thomas College in our small business management class, we actually, they set us into groups. Some did calling people, asking them for information, some did a focus group. We went down to Freeport and ended up doing a business plan for a customer. So, and we worked through FAME, and it's through FAME, I believe, or they worked with FAME. So that, I'm not sure if they can use that on the municipal side of it, or if you needed a focus group, or where you needed to make those phone calls, or.
Well, the survey in Rumford at the Muskie Building was done by a lady at the Community Concepts, who was assigned by them to help us out.
Yep.
So I said, oh, I got a good job for you, save me from having to knock on all those doors.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do, I've done it, it's a hard thing to do, to knock on a door and say, hi, how much income do you make? That's awful. But I'm like, listen, I'm trying to rebuild your road,
There you go.
and this is what I need to do, and here's the paper.
Yeah.
And most people were nice. Once I did the first two, it was easy.
Is it?
It was hard to knock on that first door.
Ouch. Anything else? Dave? Donnie?
No.
Good? Cindy?
All
Bill?
good.
Okay,
Thank you, Laura. That's a lot of good information.
yep, appreciate all the hard work you all do. Thank you. Next is agent agreement, Shane McDougal. You have the final, you have all the documentation in front of you. The final is the first page. We have the letter from Mr. Langsdorff that follows that. It's good afternoon. Attached is a revised agent agreement with Shane. I spoke to him and his lawyer yesterday and have sent them the same draft. He will work with contractors who are doing town projects to negotiate their purchase of aggregate from Chick Hills, starting with the airport. It seems like a fair agreement. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, Steve Langdon. So I move we accept this proposal number 3, first one in your packet, and all the documentation, and I'm assuming everybody's read it.
Question.
I have a motion on the floor. I need a second. Okay, now let's go.
Okay. You guys tabled this from last meeting?
So we could,
So,
Yeah.
okay, because I'm glad to see that they've changed a lot of this, because the amounts were
yep,
way out of whack.
yep, well, it's there.
Yeah. And
Okay.
personally, I'd like to see 5% for whatever, but I don't know if we want to go messing with this at this point, but,
I don't. I think we want to get going on this.
okay.
Yep,
I just, think
I'll get
that
you, Joe. Hang on.
we always talk about how many people live in this town that are resources for us. I'm just wondering if this is one of them. Instead of shelling out $40,000 to somebody, is there somebody in town that could do this? Or somebody that works for the town?
You want to respond to
I'm
it,
just
John?
asking.
He's an engineer, and he would know what kind of material needs to be certain specifications. And that, I happened to ask the contractor up there, what's a real going rate for stumpage? And he said, it can be anywhere from $1 to $4, depending upon what the material is. So I wouldn't know what that is. And,
Yep.
I don't know if anybody here would know what it is.
I don't know.
I think in this case, Donnie, he's already got a working relationship with the contractors, and they're the ones that are blasting it, and they're all set up. So if anything happens with this, it's gonna be, in the current time frame, I think, because of Bloom Lake Road and also
Okay.
the possibility of the taxiway. Those are the only 2 projects that are in the area.
I'll vote for it, but I'm not happy about it. That's the deal.
Do you have any points? Let's go here next.
You don't want them, because you told me to go home and think about it, and I did,
God.
and it's worse.
That's fine.
So, okay, and it's hard because Shane's not here to help explain it a little bit more. So for example, let's just take for example, originally our 5% was 600,000. So with that, how was that determined to equal the materials that were coming out of Chick Hill? Did Joe do an estimate or something of how much we would charge them?
Who's Joe?
Joe Roach.
Okay.
So how did we come up?
Joe
with
Roach is so
how
much
we-
out of my mindset that
I
I don't
know,
what
but
you're talking about.
and then, I agree with Donnie, I think it should be 5% across the board, not 5 and 10. And why would it be more of a percentage for the higher dollar amount? So these are just estimated figures. He already had that information. Our information on the airport was based on our 5%. He came up with the idea to use the materials off Chick Hill. So someone had to calculate how much that stumpage would be. Because we're not talking about anything processed or anything. So how would it be any different now? And what agreement do we have already with the GC? He's hauling stuff.
Thank you.
Everyone keeps saying that the mountain's disappearing. So how do we know how much has been used so far? Okay.
Because there's a young man up there named Tyler who's counting everything. And he's been doing it since day one.
Okay. Let's see. And I would have to see an example exactly of how Shane would calculate it to see if we're not just jacking or not just increasing the price to meet the, basically the commission off of him bartering the new dollar amount. And good business. They've already started, and now we're going back saying we want a higher price. I just didn't know how that 600, that 5% was calculated. That's what I don't understand.
Right.
And let's see.
You got a lot of questions. You want them to start answering, or?
Well, do you want me to just go through the list?
Oh,
or do you
go
want?
ahead. Finish. Yeah.
Would the money made through selling the town stumpage, would those funds be able to be used for another department? Why wasn't this part in the beginning? That's what I don't understand about the 5%. And do you want me to break and then go through the rest?
Might as well.
Because
What was that?
Might as well start, if someone's got answers. John?
I just want to understand it.
I saw him raise his hand.
Cindy.
Try to remember all your questions.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's-
I'll do my best.
Okay.
talking about the 5%, how
Right.
that started. It started at 10% for everything.
Okay.
And I said to him, when we were first sitting down talking about this, can't you come up with something more reasonable, like, you know? So then he came up with, it's in one of the first agreements. And when I was looking at it, if I can find it. Page 8. Okay, so then he talks about, you know, after I had first mentioned this to him, he says he changed it. A base fee of 5% of the gross amount paid to the contractor for less than $150,000. Then an additional 5% to the base fee of the gross amount paid by contractors for gross amounts greater than $150 and less than $300,000, and then an additional 10%. So when I read that, I called Steve Langsdorff, because we were at the final stages, and I said, so how do you interpret that? Because I read it as 5%, and then after the first 150,000, another 5%, so that's 10, and then after 300,000, an additional 10, so now we're up to 20.
And that's $60,000.
And he said, yeah, you're right. So the next thing you know, we got almost the final version back that made it very clear. You get 5% for the first 300,000, then anything after that, 10%. That's how that whole thing came about. But it started as 10% across the board. So, and that's before anything was even written, when he was just talking about it. So what other question did you have, Amy?
Well, see, and he has the advantage point, I wanna know what the relationship is as what his duty is as the engineer versus what, I mean,
This is entirely a separate agreement. This is between us and him. It's got nothing to do with Du Bois King. That's what he told us.
right, and then like, if that is the case too, I would like actually Du Bois King to sign something saying that that's okay. I mean, that's like someone going into your restaurant, seeing the specials on the board, and then you change your mind. I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of,
Who changes their mind? The customer or me?
no, you say, oh, wait, no, we don't have that.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
it
able
just-
to do that. When we run out, we run out. What are you talking about?
I know, but I mean, the owner of the company, I think, should say whether or not it's okay that this happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but this
That's like me accepting, okay, so that's like, better example. That's like me doing the books for one of my customers. That's like totally wrong. You know what I mean? As a banker, for me to have control of their money in addition to in my position at the bank, that would be a conflict.
It'd be like you loaning money to somebody on the side.
Exactly, yes.
But wouldn't that be between you and your employer? That would be a violation of ethics.
But
within your own
my
bank.
employer already has those standards set up.
So
I
then,
can't.
so if you break it, then you have a problem with your employer.
I think that's why Shelley's asking for that letter from Du Bois King, right?
Right.
But is that our role to do that between him and his employer? I mean, I don't know.
Cause I don't understand the scope of, like,
Wait a minute, if anybody's doing anything to their employer, it's not up to us to babysit that, is it?
it's good.
Well, I mean,
We've never been in this
If it, how do we know if
position
it's not a
Okay.
conflict?
what's that? I think we've been in this position in other areas, we're just not using that as an example. I'm just suggesting that it's not up to us to babysit. It's no different than Kenny Haley coming up here and now we gotta get a letter from Joe and Scotty and say, well, this is right, Kenny can say that. We don't do that, we just make that assumption that he's out here representing them and doing it correctly.
They're responding to a scope of work, though. We've set out the scope of work asked for, and they are
Correct.
responding to it.
I'm
so,
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like he's doing this under the
next,
table.
go ahead.
You mentioned about the stumpage rate. What I just gave you was, we had just given you a little FYI that we submitted an invoice to the FAA for the first force account money. So what this shows is what was sent was 173,000 yards of embankment material for $1.41 a yard, and the bill was $243,930. So that amount, when it comes in, will go, the force account, up to that 5% match. That was figured in the grant, and then later on, the FAA decided to give us the whole 100%, and agreed to pay us for that material. So that's gonna go in your in your airport reserve account.
And it has to go on the airport reserve.
Yes, that's the force account to be.
I still don't think that's right, but anyways.
Why?
But to be available for future airport projects. So that's gonna eliminate the need for the town to come up with a local 5% share, so that's a big help. So anything above that is what his contract's talking about. So if he can buy another couple 100,000 yards from them of various material, we're not gonna get a lot. You can see $1.41.
I know, that's what I'm saying is-
Because they're spending all the money to blast it out.
That's right.
Exactly,
And that's
we're
been our
stumpage,
point.
that's
Right,
the
so,
whole thing, so
I don't
what's
know
the
how much
necessary to
that
have
costs,
someone?
but when I did
negotiate?
ask Adam up there, what is it, going stumpage rate, he said between $1 and $4, which makes perfect sense, especially when you see we're getting paid $1.41 to go into our airport reserve account. That's, in that sense, that's a reasonable amount, given how much money they have to spend to get it out of the ground.
Okay.
They're saving money, because they don't have to haul it 20 miles.
Right.
You see, so I mean, it's some kind of a trade-off in there, but, this, as the project progresses, we'll bill them like this under the force account until we get, I believe it's 570-something thousand, whatever our 5% commitment.
So what happens if you go beyond the 5%?
That's where the contract with Shane comes into play. He'll negotiate, rather than them buying material somewhere else, he'll negotiate continuing to use our material at whatever cost he'll negotiate with them.
Okay, so what you're saying is for this dollar amount here per cubic yard, that is the price that we are receiving until our
Right.
5%
$1.41.
is met. Shane's contract doesn't come into play until after we have maxed that dollar amount.
It comes in.
Yeah, or it could be before, if, say we started Loon Lake Road next week, yeah, that might come into play if we could use material on that, but yeah, you're basically right. This project will be done, because after this amount is accumulated to what
No,
our
it's not.
commitment was, there's still gonna be a lot more material needed
Okay.
to finish that project.
After that.
And some of that material might be more valuable, because when they do the base course, that's gotta be a much more refined gravel to
Okay.
go under the pavement, you see? So this is just really rough.
So,
Hold on,
So-
well, let's finish everything with Shelley first,
Yeah.
please.
All right, so let's, just for example, if the town's paying Dubois King, who works as our engineer, why wouldn't it fall underneath the job description as the engineer? Why would we have to have a separate contract? I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because I don't get that part.
Because this is, at least in Shane's mind, above and beyond what the scope of their responsibility was. They designed the project, Dubois King is there to oversee the project. They have a couple of people there, geotechnical people, they're on a daily basis. He's up here I believe every other week for a meeting with the contractor. Steve and I have been to one of them, I've been to a couple of them. This is above and beyond. This is to provide us with additional funds for them using more of our material than what they're obligated to. In that contract, I understand they were obligated to provide enough material to meet our 5%
Okay.
contribution, so that it wouldn't cost the town any cash.
Okay.
That's how that was,
Right.
is my understanding.
Yeah, because that's what I saw, like he got, even though it's 100%, I figured his role would still be,
So what-
just
what
as a
he-
town, we don't have the knowledge for this
Right.
stuff, so we rely on the people who we pay to give us that knowledge, so I just,
So what he had done.
May I chime in?
Yeah.
We would have been fat and happy and all done with this project, and nobody would have known there was an opportunity to put some money in the coffers. And Shane McDougal stepped up, the only one to step up and say, I can do this for you, and this is what it's gonna cost you. And you're suggesting that it should be part of his, I'll get to you, Mark, I promise, okay? Kind of lose my train of thought when that happens, but everybody's suggesting that he's doing something subversive, and I just don't see it.
No, I just, like I said, I don't know where the line is between his position as an engineer to us versus his contract to do something else for us.
Right, because, I mean, John touched on it, he's got the engineering skills and ability to critique what is there, though I would think the contractor would, that is sourcing the materials, would have a better means of identifying their, you know, what they want. So I guess that's kind of where it's like, okay, so he's using his engineering expertise in his current job to, you know, it's,
Which because of that gave him the idea.
Yeah.
I that's,
So Shelley, what he did in Greenville, I think you all had
Yeah.
copies of that whole
Yeah.
package. Was after the whole FAA process was in, approved, they needed more material than what was in that contract. So he was able to negotiate with the contractor to buy more of that material from the town-owned pit, apparently. And he brought in an additional $100,000 to the town.
is that minus the fee?
he didn't
He
charge
didn't have a
anything.
fee at that
Oh.
point, so his feeling was, why should he go do that? If he can get a fee, so he proposed to charge a fee and he'll get us more money. And you're looking at, up to $300,000, 5%. So that's like $15,000 and we take in $300,000, or $285,000.
Good return on
It's not a
investment.
bad deal for the town. I mean, you gotta look at, what's in the best interest of the town. And that money doesn't have to be restricted to the airport capital improvement. That money could go into.
That's above and beyond.
the Lake Road project, the town share of that, it could go into.
The sewer department then.
The sewer
Put it in.
department, anything.
This-
You want, and you decide you wanna.
That was a follow-up question I had, because this bill is, is to, this bill would then be to Sargent Corporation, once we go,
Yes, instead of FAA.
instead of FAA.
Exactly. So it's us doing business directly with them.
I think, the fact that we're dealing with the public's money, these questions are totally in line, and, we need to understand why we're being charged for his services and Greenville wasn't. So that's where I'm coming from. More
Okay.
money the town can keep, the better. So I do, are you done, or do you?
Oh, yeah, I'm good.
So regarding his contract here, okay, so we've got 5% of the gross amount paid by the contractor for amounts less than $300,000. Is that cumulative? Or is this, if this bill was $301,000, it would be 10%?
Oh, I see your point.
Or the total amount.
Say that one again, Cindy?
I would have him rewrite the bill for $300,000.
I'm just saying, there could be some,
$299,000. I see your point.
that's why I think it should be just 5%.
Yeah, I see your point. I think 10% for anything, let's read exactly what it says.
Well, I've got it right.
Yeah, the final version. And I copied the whole process.
Wait, I want to understand this. Say that one again, please.
So Steve, what I asked for is, if this invoice
Yeah.
was for $301,000,
Yeah,
would his take be 10%?
on
On this one invoice?
the
For being 300.
$1,000, not the 300.
No.
That's
This is-
I'm deviling you my understanding.
Yeah, it says greater than, Cindy.
Yeah.
It says for gross amounts greater than $300,000, so.
Had one yard.
Gross amounts greater, I would say that's the 1,000, not
Yeah.
301,000.
Okay.
Correct.
Pretty
So,
clear to me.
well, I guess what I'm asking is that, so if he's dealing with Sargent Corporation and they've already paid us, $290,000, and then the next bill comes in and it's for $100,000, is he collecting 10% because it's cumulative?
Just the amount over the three. And there's an example here.
Of the whole project
Example,
bill.
$400,000 contract, agent is paid 5% of the first 300,000, 15,000, and 10% of the additional 100,000 for 10,000, totaling 25,000. So the example makes that extremely clear, that 5% for the first 300,000, and then 10% for anything above that.
So has Sargent Corporation put forth something for consideration as far as,
No, because that would be negotiate,
Okay.
his job in this contract would be to negotiate that with Sergeant.
so it sounds like though, this is a negotiation in process depending on the stumpage that's pulled from Chick Hill.
And-
So the
and
price can
according-
change. So how could there possibly be a set $400,000 contract then if,
It's not, it would be by,
I think it should be 5%, that's it.
there's no contract because it's based on volume. What, he's gonna negotiate a cubic yard rate, and then whatever they buy at that rate will be assessed the 5% up to the $300,000. So it's pretty cut and dry as far as that goes. There's no way, the only thing I said to him when he brought this to me was, do you think there's more than $300,000 worth of material that we're gonna continue to need after the force account amount? He said, yeah. And he would know, I don't know what the quantities are, that's quite a mountain they're building out there, at the end of that runway. It's a
If
lot
he
of
can get us
material.
$400,000, then he's worth every penny.
My problem is that between the dollar and
Huh?
the amount we're gonna pay is a fine line here. How much negotiations do you need between $1 and $4, is my point? $25,000 worth? It's not rocket science here. I mean, it's either gonna be $1 or $4. Hopefully for us, it will be the $4.
But the material at the end is a finer material, which is worth more. Because if they have to haul a fine gravel
That's right.
to go under the pavement from somewhere else, it's gonna be significantly more than $4 a yard. So he's negotiating the higher end material, not just the base fill.
I understand that, but we're not talking the difference between
Talking stumpage.
$100 and $100,000 here.
What you're upset with is that he's getting paid.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily, but I'm just saying that the negotiating is between $1 and $4 for most of it.
That's, what John gave you an example, why don't you clarify it so it doesn't sound like it's coming from?
Yeah, all I asked the contractor was, give me a, what's
Right,
reasonable?
that's
What
what
are
I
you
mean.
guys familiar with? Anywhere from $1 to $4, that's all
Yeah,
I
I
know.
understand that, but
And
my
how that's
point is that
rated,
Shane's gonna negotiate between $1 and $4.
No, explain it, John.
Could be more because.
Yeah, I understand that too.
So where's the nearest gravel pit around here?
Well, let's see, down toward
How far away are you?
Madrid,
8 miles.
All right, so
10 miles.
8, 10
now,
miles.
now he's looking at, and this, we kind of touched on this earlier. He's looking at a position where if we don't sell the contractor the material, he's gotta buy it somewhere else, and that's gonna mean additional transportation costs.
Mhm.
So now Shane can use that as some leverage and maybe get a little more money out of it. You see what I mean?
Fine.
Maybe
That's
more
one of
than
the
four.
possibilities.
Well-
So that's- The other thing is he knows, or he's gotta know what it costs them to mine all that material, to crush the material to certain specifications.
Hold on, guys,
There's a big
please.
deal.
was kind of what they're willing to give them. More than anything. They're gonna figure out whether it's worth hauling it up here or not.
Okay, Donnie, hold on one second. Cindy, did you have any more?
I don't think so.
Shelley? Did you get them answered? Everybody here? Mark, you had your hand up.
Okay, so it sounds to me like someone determined that the stumpage value for this first phase of the airport is $1.41 a yard. Okay. Sargent Corporation bid this job, the runway extension the relocation of the Loon Lake Road, everything they were gonna do based on processing that material at a set stumpage rate. The finer the material that's required, the more they spend to process it. You know, the stumpage rate generally stays the same, you know, right across the board. Now, you know, that bill's for a couple $100,000, they're not half done yet, you know, so they don't wanna go look somewhere else. They're planning on every yard they use in the runway extension and that coming from the town of Rangeley. So once they're not gonna stop when Rangeley gets whatever their 5% is, they're gonna keep doing. That's how this job is set up to run.
Exactly.
And so to think that there's some lost opportunity here, it's just that instead of, they're gonna pay, I would think, that it's already in the works there, that they, oftentimes on these things, they don't bill the FAA at all for them. The contractor pays the town the whole time, and then the town takes that money and pays their share of the 5% and just keeps everything that's in excess. Because it's their raw material that's being processed for this. So it's a little bit different in that we're billing the FAA force account there rather than Sargent Corporation paying us directly. So if it was working that way, this would be a non-issue because we'd be getting all the money as it will. And rather than if we quit billing the FAA, we could just bill Sargent Corporation, you know, and the money will come. I don't think we need this Shane McDougal involved in this. I think it would be better, you know, if this is going to be an ongoing thing, to get the public works person some experience, Keith, you know, and if it's an airport project, work with the airport commission and figuring that out. If it's a sewer project, work with the sewer commission. If it's a public works thing, you know, and you selectmen, and not get, I don't think we need this to create this position and give that 5% away.
So who's gonna get us the $300,000 right now that's available, he thinks?
We're gonna build Sargent Corporation for it. They're gonna turn
We're,
it
no, none of us are going up there to negotiate this.
We're gonna go up there and count.
Who's gonna-
Why? You're gonna change the stumpage rate on them because we've met our 5% share? You're gonna,
We don't have a 5% share.
listen, that's what John says, the cutoff date. The thing is, the FAA is gonna quit paying us if we had met our 500 and some thousand or the 5% share.
That's
You
my
know, so that's
understanding.
$1.41. They bid this job on a set stumpage price.
Correct.
So, just because the town reaches some threshold with the FAA, doesn't mean the contractor's gonna experience some increase.
What
in
you're
his
forgetting to
stumpage
tell
rate
everybody
within
in
the
your
town.
soliloquy here is that Shane McDougal negotiated with the federal government on our behalf. So that because of the 100% funding, they were going to assume the stumpage fee back to the FAA. He said nothing doing, that's going to the town of Rangeley. He already did that.
It
Mark, he
would've gone to
did.
the town of Rangeley anyway.
No, it wasn't. The town of Rangeley was going to lose it.
No.
No, Sergeant
I don't
Corp
believe
would have been billed.
Listen,
mean,
I was
therefore-
there, I listened to it, I know I heard it correctly, I asked multiple questions, and this is the scenario. And if we need to get him back here, we will, by God. But the federal government, when they did the 100% funding, was not going to be paying the town of Rangeley anything for stumpage fees. That money was going back to the federal government.
We would have billed.
And Shane okay, Cindy, I disagree with you respectfully so, and you disagree with me.
Yes.
But I am telling you, he negotiated this opportunity for Rangeley. And he also is capable, and he brought it to us for the extra $300,000. I'm sorry, but that's the way I understand it. Yes, Joe?
I'm more confused than ever.
Well, I'm sorry, but you know what? We've been going at this for quite a while
Well,
now.
I don't know why he needed it. He should be working the boy he can. The whole contract, you bid that contract out up there, the fill was there. So I don't know what all this talk is about all this extra money somebody getting paid. I don't care what it is. I never heard of such a thing in my life. Why are you paying somebody 5%? I just don't understand why you're paying somebody some money. The rock's there, and it was in the bid to take it to the airport.
Look, I got a great deal of respect for the both of you, and I hate to be the one to disagree with you in a public forum, but you all get paid for your work. And when you have an intellectual idea and you come up with something that earns you money, you expect to be paid.
Right.
There's nothing alien about this concept at all. And he
you-
brought this to us with the notion that we could make this extra money. Nobody else brought this to the table.
How come nobody heard about it until after months? I don't care really, but months after the.
It all came up,
the job
Joe.
started, now this guy wants some money. I don't.
It all came up, Joe,
It's kind of funny.
when we got the 100% funding, and that came after the award. When the initial award came out, it was told to us, initially we were going to be paying 5%. That was going to be our share.
Right.
Then the federal government awarded 100%.
Right.
We didn't have any money to
That's right, you sent
spend.
another thing for
So-
extra money, that's right.
That's correct. That was brought to us by who? Shane McDougal.
Oh, that's right, because you sent in another thing.
Shane
Sent in another
McDougal.
one.
And everybody at this board all talked about it. You all talked about it. It went back to the federal government. They gave us 100% funding.
So we charged it, but I mean,
I'll come right to you, Mark.
but so he negotiated on his own instead of through, I mean, the boy King kind of, I don't really care, but
No?
he did that on the side instead of through the boy.
Right.
Yeah, you do care, Joe. You're here to talk
I
about
know.
it. I know you care.
And why you got paying 5%, and why are you paying, they're gonna take an extra 300,000 yards. I mean, I hope they're gonna charge money for
There's
that
no
extra
extra in the contract. There's no changing in the bid process. It's allocation of funding.
Right, I understand that.
No, I know you do. Yeah.
It's like 500,000 yards of rock they're gonna take out, right?
Estimated.
Now,
Yeah.
now they're gonna take out another couple 100,000 yards they wanna buy, if you'll sell it to them cheap enough.
We're not taking out any extra, are we?
Well,
I've never heard that.
No, only if we need it for a future town project.
Yeah, I mean, it's available. That's true. If it's available for future town project, but there's no future town project yet. Everybody's still squawking about Loon Lake Road.
But Loon Lake Road, I mean, we just today I got email back from the state approving the MPI grant for $500,000. But we still gotta come up, that total estimate's $1.1 million.
Yeah.
So we gotta come up with our share. Well,
Right.
if we can sell $300,000 worth of gravel and have that toward the share, we tried to apply for a Northern Borders grant, which
Right.
will
Turned out.
do another round, this next round. But that money's available and approved by DOT for FY19. We have to start the project in 18 months, and we have 3 years to finish the project. So that gives us time to apply for more money with the Northern Border, and maybe a little more clout now that we have a signed agreement from MDOT. And David Bernhardt signed it on the 28th of December, just before
You get
the
removed.
new administration took over. So.
Yep. Mark, you had
The town was never gonna pay cash for their 5% share.
That's correct.
From day one,
It's
it was
coming out
gonna
of-
come from Chick Hill,
Yep.
from the material from Chick Hill. So, the stumpage rate appears to be $1.41, you know. So we're gonna get that $1.41 after we meet that magic 5% thing, because they're gonna continue to use the material to finish the extension on this end, finish the extension where they're working now, and to relocate the Loon Lake Road. So it's not like you're kissing that money goodbye, they're gonna keep.
Yeah, it
We
is.
don't know that, we don't
Because-
know it's $1.41. The $1.41 may have been the contract price when we needed to come up with a specific amount of money for a local match. They could have said, all right, how much is that? So many yards, $1.41, that'll give the town its local match. We don't know that it's gonna continue to be $1.41, it might be more or less for all we know.
I
Why
asked,
would that continue on under some
Because
contract?
they.
Hold on,
bid
hold
it
on.
a set
Dave?
amount.
in one of the original meetings at the airport, when we were gonna be having a 5% match, I asked them, if they take out more yards than what the 5% match is, do we get the extra money? He said, no, you'll never get more than your 5%. There is more yardage in there than the 5%. So now we have an opportunity to cash in on the extra above and beyond the 5%.
Who gave you that answer, Dave, if you don't mind me
The
asking?
engineers, I asked them right up at the
The
meeting, I said,
engineer said you would never get more than you.
No, I
if we were gonna have to match 5%, we
Material
were
they took
not,
off your
they
land.
don't let me talk,
They were
talk
gonna
over me.
cap how much Rangeley could get, whether it was 10,000 yards or 1,000,000 yards, you could only get
They
X
said
amount of dollars.
our match
That's
was
crazy.
5%. Our match was 5%. If it took more gravel than that to do the project, then we would never get more than our 5%.
We wouldn't have to give them more than that.
I think what they done, they.
Hold on. You all set?
Yep.
I think what they done, they matched.
Paul?
This is amazing that we're having this argument. There's been less debate on spending $300,000 than getting $300,000 into our coffers. You suggest that maybe we should have towns workers do this. We're talking about $15,000 for $300,000. How much money do you think you're gonna spend to get people educated on how they negotiate, how they determine how much is coming out of Chick Hill, and how much we should get paid? You're gonna pay way more than that. Because you pay employees, they're not free. If you take them away from one thing, they're not doing that job. So it's not, these guys aren't free. You already have them doing jobs. So if you think you're gonna do this for less than $15,000 doing it yourself, you're crazy. I'm sorry, but you are. This guy came to us with a proposal to put money in the town coffers. And he's gonna do it. You don't have to go say, we need some of John's time, we need some of Tracy's time, we need some of Trish's time, we need Rebecca's time, we need the town, whoever. They cost money, they're not free. This is an opportunity for the town, for someone who knows how to do this. So you're paying them $15,000. You're getting $185,000. How often do you get that opportunity? $285,000. How often has that happened since any of you have been on this town council?
Never.
You had a point?
So what's the stumpage rate? Who set the stumpage rate then? On this 300,000 yards?
Yeah, that's to be negotiated, Joe, on this additional,
Right.
but all we know as of the bill we just sent to FAA, for what's been taken out so far,
Right.
is $1.41
Right.
a yard.
And that's a bargain. It's gonna be a bargain for Sergeant, I tell you. If he can buy 300,000 yards for $1.40 a yard sitting on the jump site.
So Joe, why don't you negotiate it then? For
Well,
free.
you know
We
it.
don't have to pay you. Go negotiate it and do the whole thing.
It'll be a
Joe,
bargain.
because you seem to know what you're talking
Well,
about.
I
So
know.
Sergeant would
Well, go
probably
do
pay
it.
more
Will
than
you do it for
$1.41
free?
a yard,
Will you
right?
do it
We
for
should-
free
we
for
should
the
charge-
town?
$4 a yard, charge $4 a yard.
Will you do it for free for the
Oh,
town?
yeah, they won't.
Okay, there you go.
Tell them $4 a yard.
Okay. You had
All right.
something else, no? You had your hand up? No? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I find it offensive that a resident of Rangeley Plantation, finds fault with the discussions we have.
Excuse me, I'm a taxpayer of this town. I
All
own
right,
property in
all right.
Rangeley, several properties in Rangeley. I have. a
Mark, I'm pretty
resident-
lenient about letting all sorts of folks from everywhere speak,
Yeah,
and,
you are.
and they're good points, and I think we can learn
That's the
from.
point.
All right,
I
then,
pay taxes in this town, Mark, okay?
okay? Anything else from the board? I'll just go, for the first half of the year, first 6 months, I started to the left, this time we'll start to the
By
right.
all means.
Dave, anything?
No.
Tony? Billy? All right, Cindy, I think you're all set?
Yep.
We have a motion to approve the option number 3 and seconded. All those in favor?
For the 1 year that we decided on at the last meeting.
I'm sorry?
Is that the final one?
The 1 year that we all agreed on at the last meeting.
The 1 year, that's correct, yep.
Is that on this one though? I didn't think that was the.
I'll make sure it's in the minutes
It
and that's
is.
the way it'll be, 1 year. All in favor? One more time? Yep. All opposed?
It should be
One
5% across.
I remember this vote once before.
Commission.
Did you get that?
Now, if I remember right, it was 1 year with the renewable option too.
Okay.
To be, is is that right?
Pending approval.
Yeah, it should be renewed.
Hold on, I had it here a second ago.
The initial one is 3 years.
It's not here. Okay, hold on. I move that we add to this contract, and it's gonna be approved by him as well, that at the end of 1 year, we review the contract
With an option for 2.
with an option for 2. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what was.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
I think it should be 5% across.
Cindy, I just put down what you wanted.
I know. Well, this was already
Well,
agreed
all
on
right,
at
I
our
mean-
last meeting. This was already
Right, I
agreed
just
on at our
wanted to make
last
sure it
meeting.
was there, and you're not gonna vote for it?
I
Okay.
still think it should be 5%. I voiced that.
Okay,
So you got 3.
it's 3-2.
Yeah.
All opposed? Do that correctly.
Yeah.
2 opposed, all right. All right, next is raise the roof. I had a conversation, this is a wonderful presentation we had at our last meeting. And a school board member I had a conversation with this week said that they are not gonna be discussing it at their school board meeting until the next one, so we'll table it until our next meeting after we get information back from the school, if you're comfortable with that, everyone. Are there any questions on raise the roof? Hearing none, move. Thank you. Thank the school board member too, even though he's not a resident of Rangeley. Appreciate it. Anything under new business? Nothing? Town manager report, department head updates. You have a bunch in front of you. We've all been busy. Tom, thank you for your work. Appreciate all your input. Not easy. You can receive these reports at the town front desk if you'd like to read them. Some are detailed. Calendar, January 16th, ordinance public workshop will include the marijuana business and facilities ordinance, we hope, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We hope.
And the marijuana ordinance, the draft will be ready next Wednesday.
Next
2 days
Wednesday?
from now, on the
Oh,
9th.
this Wednesday.
Yeah, the meeting is next Wednesday, so.
Meeting.
Right.
Week from Wednesday, correct? Yeah. That's the 16th, yeah. January 28th, public information workshop, parallel taxiway and marijuana ordinance. I'm going to schedule a budget meeting with the budget committee. John, you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I think we'll be ready, like the last week of January. That's all right with you, any day. 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st.
The last full week or the last few days in January?
Well, it's the last, there's 5 days in the last week, not 7, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 28th through the 31st.
The 20th, you have a selectmen's meeting.
Do you have a preference on the date?
You have a selectmen's meeting the 28th, that's when? Oh, the holiday. Yeah, so it's a holiday on the 21st, so you move the selectmen's meeting already to the 28th. That's the fourth Monday.
And we already have a public hearing starting at 5.
On the 28th.
Yeah. The 30th is out for me.
What about everybody else? Give me some dates.
I'm good. Whatever.
Noon on the 28th.
Thursday's out for me too.
Say it again.
I can't be out, the 30th, I
4 hours before?
think.
You both going to a basketball game? Okay.
I am.
I'm going to Thomas College for bank meeting.
What about Tuesday, the 29th?
It's open.
Everybody good on the 29th? How about you all? Let's do it.
What time?
4 o'clock?
With the budget committee? Notify them.
Yeah, that gives everybody an opportunity to have department heads there to answer questions. You're still doing it that way, right? Hello, I need your help, Cindy.
Yeah, typically the budget, typically the town and the department heads present and,
Yep.
and defend their request.
Right, I just was making
Yeah.
sure we're still doing it the same
Yep.
process. Remember, it was 100 years ago I was here last time, so. I had brown hair and I had hair.
Add here.
All set? Let's do it then on the
Yeah.
29th, Tuesday at 4 o'clock. 29th, 4 p.m. Okay, other business, wastewater treatment plant, eminent domain response. Let me read it to you. Under, question was brought up by Joe at the last meeting that we might be doing something improper. I'm glad he brought it up so we could get it cleared. I had asked the town office crew to get us an opinion from MMA, and here it is. Good afternoon. At a recent selectmen's meeting, we discussed, no, that's her response. Here's the response. Dear Tracy, I know that of no law prohibiting a municipality from selling surplus fill, gravel, timber, or other similar natural byproducts of land acquired by eminent domain. In your case, the proposed sale of surplus fill generated by your airport runway extension project would be clearly incidental to the principal and proper use of the property for lawful public purpose. In my opinion, there is nothing about your proposal that would violate the eminent domain laws or any municipal law, provided the sale of this fill is properly authorized by the voters, the same as would be required, for the sale of other town property. Best regards, Richard P. Flewelling, Senior Staff Attorney, Maine Municipal Associates. That should make sure that we... Yep, no, I mean,
It's good, you didn't have to pay a lawyer or anything, you have to read it.
ask the question, we got an answer for you. Making sure we do our due diligence. DOT Principal Partnership Agreement. John has signed this, it's in our packet to show that it's been signed. Okay?
And just today, I got a response that Commissioner Bernhardt signed. I already mentioned that to you.
Perfect, thank you.
So we have up to 3 years to finish the project. And hopefully get some more money to come up with a local share.
The FAA force account invoice, you have that now? Everybody's good there? The CBD is, here I go again, my dyslexia. CD, Community Development Block Grant Funds, Downtown Revitalization Plan, we read that earlier. Super, number 11, Select Board Communication. Starting to my right, anything from you, Dave? No. Donnie?
No.
Shelley? Cindy?
Nope.
Okay. I think this board works extremely well together. I just want to tell you all this. We have good communication, and what I'd like to make sure that you're all aware of is that when something is asked of a select person, the typical procedure is it comes through me and then I get it done, or if I can't be reached, then it goes to the town office, so please contact them with any of your concerns. Any of us, doesn't have to be me, it can be any of you, and I think that's extremely appropriate and moves along forward. That being said, we need to go into executive session.
Which one do you want called first?
One on the property?
The real property, let's do that first.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Subchapter 1, Subsection 405.
Thanks, everyone.
6C for the acquisition of real property. Motion's made.
I need a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? We're going to that. Thank you.
Thank you, folks, good job.
Yep, thank you. You too.